Okay,
I
that's
have to
good.
stare at myself.
That's good. Okay. Okay, we can start.
Okay, so welcome to the weekly live call on the HVAC Game School community, our Drive to Work Wednesday, which is now happening at night because it's winter time and it works better. So welcome everyone. It's good to see you. And then my first question is, Victoria, do we have any community questions?
No.
No, no, like ask community questions in the community?
No, but you say Eric had a question, so not community questions that I got from people.
Yes, we know Eric has a question. If he wants to ask it here, then he can go ahead now and ask it. Hey, Eric.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, it's good. It's good.
That's good.
I'm glad I still have work. Like every day I'm looking at my board and I'm like, I hope I get a call, but I had 7 hours, and today I had 8 hours. So it's still
That's,
good. It's still good.
that's good. Yeah. Yeah, I got a lot. I got a lot. I got plenty of work where I'm at.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah. Um, recently, because like most of my background is residential, and
Hmm.
recently, I've been in the commercial stuff, so I am running into new stuff, different things.
Yeah.
Um, like I started taking care of a building that got water source heat pumps with a cooling tower and a boiler, and then it just it got my curiosity because a lot of people said don't gauge up because it takes there's a little bit of refrigerant in them water source heat pumps. So I was like, okay, I was just curious in heating mode, would your pressures be the same as in cooling mode since you kind of like in my like at that place where I'm at, we maintain a 80-degree loop. So I was like, well, the loop is basically my load. So I'm like, that load tends to never change. So I'm
Mm,
assuming my pressures will be the same in heating and cooling.
I think so. Yeah, it should be.
Okay.
As far as I know, they should be. But if you gauge up, why are you not supposed to gauge up? If you have your smart probes, you're not losing a lot of refrigerant, no?
That's what I figured, but I'm gonna try it on one and see what he
But
said.
do you have a specific problem with one unit why you
No,
want to gauge up, or you
no,
just wanted to
no.
ask in general?
Yeah, yeah, just
Oh,
ask
okay.
in general.
Yeah, honestly, when I was working on water source heat pumps, I didn't have my EPA yet,
Uh-huh.
so I wouldn't gauge up myself. I always had to outsource all the work, and that was one
Okay.
of the main reasons why I actually got my company at that time
Okay.
to pay for my EPA.
Yeah.
But then before I mean, I finished it, but then I didn't work for them that long on
Oh,
that specific. So I never really gauged up to water source heat pumps, but just from the technicality behind it, your pressures shouldn't change. I mean, obviously, if you're in heat mode,
yeah.
it's reverse operation. So you're
Uh-huh.
taking heat out of the water instead of
Yeah.
putting the heat back into the water. But
Yeah, and it's not like a heat pump on the residential system, where your evaporator is outside and let's say, that temperature is going to drop. It could be, 55 one day, it could be 20 degrees another day. So your pressures are going to change. But I start thinking, I'm like, well, if the loop temperature is always 80 degrees, it should stay the same,
you have very constant pressures. Yeah. I guess the only
Yeah,
thing that would change is the room temperature. If you have one room that's
exactly.
at like 50 degrees and the other one is at
Uh-huh.
80 degrees, so
Yeah,
you would have a changed area.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I was hoping that also Christian was going to show up because he also had a question on his maintenance side of things, but
Okay.
I don't think he made it. But I
Let's
wanted
see.
to actually take up the one question that you asked in the community about how to get promoted, and I
Uh,
wanted to take it up in this call. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about it right now. So
Yeah. Okay, we should take his question, I guess.
I don't know his question. I was hoping that he was going to be here. So I'm just going to talk about how to get promoted because I thought it was a very good point and like not being satisfied with being stuck in a position. And Eric brought up in the community that he knows or he has seen people just stay as a filter changer or a maintenance guy and do the same things over and over for like up to 3 years. And people apparently don't question it. And I don't know exactly all the circumstances around it, but I was a little bit surprised because from my perspective, I'm always trying to learn something new every day. I'm trying to improve on something. And there's always there's always something that I either see online or that I encounter on the job, or another technician reaches out to me, or somebody sends me a picture and it's like, yo, do you know what's going on here? So there's always something that's challenging me. And for me, it's just natural to just keep growing as a technician and trying to make more and get better and just like expand. Um, so the question is actually really good because I didn't really think about it. Um, but as I mentioned in the community on my short video, is how I resolve that is mainly through providing value to the company that you work for and showing with your actions that you are intending to grow as a technician. And I just recently had a review, which I actually had a review in July this year, which was 5 months ago. Well, 6 months, no, 5 months ago now, where I was promoted to lead technician for the Austin market. And then I just asked 2 weeks ago because I was like, okay, is there something that I can track, some metrics, something that I can do to know if I'm getting better in the eyes of the company? And I just asked my supervisor, like, hey, is there any metrics that you can give me that you can look up and tell me that I can know that I'm providing more value or that I'm becoming better or that I'm growing in the right direction? Because I'm like out in the field, I'm just doing what I'm doing. And I watch YouTube videos at night and I'm connecting with other technicians and ask questions. But is that really beneficial to the company? And he's like, okay, let's do another review. And it was him and the president of the company. And I was like, wow, I mean, I didn't really ask for it, but it just naturally happened because I was curious on how I could expand as a technician to also provide more value for the company. And honestly, my company that I work for, they're relatively new. They're only 3 years in business. So they didn't even have it fully figured out. And they're like, okay, we could go this way, we could go that way. And now we're like figuring out what we can measure, but it just puts into the mind of your supervisor or the boss, or it depends how big your company is. If you work directly for the owner, then it just shows that you are curious and you are hungry and you want to provide value to the company. So instead of going up to the person and saying like, hey, look, I've been working here for 3 years and you don't want to be promoting me and I'm gonna go somewhere else, which is kind of you're telling them like how they're wrong or how they're making your life harder. And instead of taking that approach, I would try and figure out how you can make their life easier or bring more value to their life and just approach it from that perspective. And that it also doesn't make it awkward because then the whole mentality shifts. And instead of you wanting something from them, it's like you're trying to give them something. You're like, hey, I want to help. Like, I want to get out in the field. I want to do service call. I know our service department is overrun and I'm just out here changing filters. Like, what can I do? And the worst case they say is like, we don't need that. And then you're like, okay, then it's time to move on. But at least you ask the question and it doesn't put you into this awkward position, at least how I see it, of having to ask for like favors or something, or like having them go out of their way to give you something. So that has worked really well for me over my career because that's also how I got my license, because I saw my company was spending a lot of money on outsourcing contractors. And I said, look, guys, I'm already on site. If you pay for my EPA, I can at least hook up my gauges and I can know if it's low or not. Even if I don't have all the equipment to do all the repairs, at least I might save one or two calls, a month, and that will pay back many times over for the EPA license. And they're like, oh yeah, that's smart. So let's do it. So it's almost like you're just proposing something that helps them. So you're making their life easier.
That sounds pretty
So
good. That
yeah.
sounds pretty good. It's a good idea to keep growing because I think it also helps you as a person, you know. So you're not stuck on the same level, so you should be able to grow. It doesn't matter where you are, so it's a good idea. I like it.
I have the strong belief that if you don't grow, you're shrinking. So if you don't expand your knowledge, like the whole world is moving on. If you don't learn something new every day, then you're like falling behind. It's kind of my mindset, but anyways. And then I wanted to just shortly also, which ties very much into that, go over. I mean, it really depends where you are in the country because our community is very international. So I'm in Texas and it's kind of the slower season. And overcoming the slow season because some people are like, okay, I don't have work. What do I do? Should I do side jobs? Should I do this? Should I do that? And I sometimes have people asking me, it's like, yo, do you have something going on? So, which also ties into the last point that I brought up is overcoming the slower season. And what I would really recommend is looking at your past year or your last few months and taking note of what you're having problems with. So I always like I don't really write it down, which can help, which if you have problems remembering things, then it's probably smart to write down. But when I go on a service call and I am uncertain about what I should do, or it takes me long to figure out what to do and how to repair it, I know that there is some kind of skill deficiency. Because if you have, like, if you just think about the ideal scene of being a technician, it would be that you go on site, like you follow the troubleshooting steps of you read the dispatch and you talk to the customer, you perform a visual inspection, you pull out your instruments and you check, and then you find which component is bad, and you recreate the problem by isolating that component and making sure that the component you found faulty is actually the problem. So if you follow those steps, technically the perfect technician would go on site, do all of those steps, and within a reasonable amount of time, let's say half an hour, find the problem and know what to do and have the part on the truck and replace it on the first visit. So that is like, it's like a never accomplishable ideal scene in the universe because perfection, it's very hard to achieve perfection with everything that's going on. You can always try for it, but um, so I try to keep that in mind and be like, okay, how can I decrease my level where I'm at now to the theoretical ideal of being able to troubleshoot every single call 100% of the time on the first call. So every day I take note of like, okay, now I have problems with one example that I struggled with earlier this year was low voltage wiring on smoke alarms and how they're tied into the unit. And then I spent several evenings just watching videos and talking to other technicians about low voltage wiring in the different ways how it's wired. And some are tied into the fire alarm system. Some are connected to monitoring companies. So you have to call in and make sure that they're in test mode. So you're not alarming, sending the alarm signal to the fire department and have the trucks come out. And that's mainly in like hospitality and medical and stuff like that, healthcare. But those are things that I struggled with at that moment. And then I noticed that and I take action. And now, right now, currently, that's just for me, is VRFs, which is the variable refrigerant systems where you have the condenser in the unit and then multiple heads in the space, and each gets their own amount of refrigerant flow based on demand in that space. So those are like all the ductless units and stuff and the cassette units. And I have not worked on those very much. And according to my company and my supervisor, it's like a lot more companies are now moving into that technology. And I know that I'm deficient at it. So I'm going to look over the Christmas season, over the slower season. I'm actually looking for courses that I can do. And I'm also putting it out to my company. I'm sending like more expensive courses to my supervisor and say, hey, I found this course. It's this amount of money. If I do this, can the company reimburse me? Because it will benefit you too. Like you can now take on contracts that we were unable to do before because we don't have a trained technician. So it helps you fill your time, get like grow as a technician, and then also come back and tie into creating more value for your company, which then opens up the potential for that raise or that new position or something. And also tying back into that really quick is don't be afraid to ask. And even if it is you're asking like what do you want to accomplish? So let's say you want to become a lead technician for your market. Talk to your supervisor, to whoever the person is that monitors you or you're in touch with. Just say, hey, what would it take for me to become a lead technician? And then just go over with them. Say, okay, we'll take all of these things. At least you have a list and you can work on it. So anyways, those are the points that I had for today. And is there any questions on those, or was that pretty clear?
No, I think it's pretty clear. I really like it. It's very clear what you're saying, and I think it makes sense. I don't know if Eric has any questions, but as far as I'm going, it's okay. For me, it's
I'm just here. I just noticed I'm like bouncing up and down because I'm like sitting on a bouncy ball. So I
okay.
keep moving like a bobblehead.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so that was pretty good. I think that's a good idea, and I think people should do it if they wanna get better, you know? So it's good.
Yeah, which I mean, my community, that's kind of what I'm trying to focus on is people that want to grow. Because if you don't want to grow, why would you invest into connecting up with other technicians? You can just coast along and live your happy life. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. That makes sense. I don't know if you have anything else, but as far as we go, I think that's
Okay,
basically for today.
good. Awesome. I loved it. It's nice
Yeah.
seeing you, Eric. And
I think too.
we'll see you engaging in the community, ask your questions, we'll get answers.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's good that you're here.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Okay, bye.
Okay.
Have a good one.
That's it. Take
Bye.
care.
Have
Bye.
a good one, everybody. Bye.
Bye.